Let's start this video with an update. This video is not inside the weekly release that I was looking for. I had a small family deal come up where I ended up having to go home. Well, to my father's side of the family home. I didn't quite make it back to where I was raised and born, but I did make it back to New York City and East Rutherford, Clifton, those areas for almost a week to deal with some family issues. So, pardon this one for being so late getting started, and bear with me because I will be going again and you won't be looking at Kansas the next video. Well, no, I think I'm going to rush and put 2 videos that'll still be done here in Kansas out before I leave. And then 3 and possibly 4 will be taken from Tennessee, from the Smoky Mountains. I've got to go visit family there, deal with some stuff that is going on. And bring them up to speed and give them the details of what is going on with me. So today's episode is on water. And I didn't promote that last time, but yes, water. Water everywhere, nary a drop to drink. Actually holds very true in modern times. Those of us that live in houses and towns here in the United States don't give water much thought. Whether you live in a city or are on rural water, your water is taken from a reservoir or river, processed, cleaned, and sanitized to make it safe for your drinking. Those on farms in our extreme rural areas live off of wells. Problem with that is some of those wells over the last 50 years have become contaminated with industrial pollutants, ionizing radiation, harsh chemicals from fabrication, and just trash seepage from the dumps. When you're up in the mountains, you don't have to deal with that so much. In the lowlands, you do. Here in Kansas, we have double the trouble. Where I'm at, I don't have to deal with one of those, but if I were to go to the Kansas River, I would have to worry about the industrial pollutants and industrial waste. Here, I have to deal with agricultural pollutants and agricultural waste. So, this creek right here that runs both sides of me cuts between both cattle farms and agricultural farms, tilled fields. The tilled fields are sprayed to make them more productive, to fertilize them, to get rid of blights, bacteria, viruses, stuff like that, and other pests and vermin. And they are mostly GMOs, the ones that are around me. So what used to be Monsanto and is now currently Bayer has a huge impact on the ag farms around me, and a lot of the seeds and stuff that they use and a lot of the chemicals they use come from them. So we have to bear this in mind when we're looking at water sources, especially when you're going wild. If you're camping in a fixed area, they usually have a water source that comes from either rural water, a well, or from city treatment. So you have safe drinking water. When you're out here, we have to take into account those factors. Heavy groundwater contaminants. The creek I just passed and was showing you has some old 1960s rotted out cars that had the batteries and everything in them. And I can only assume that the oils and everything were still in them and that they still had some fuel which contained lead. So I consider that creek contaminated with heavy metals, industrial pollutants, and agricultural pollutants. Now, being here in the center of the state, and this being an agricultural area, commercial planting ag farms that plant beans, stuff like that, they spray heavily. The area I'm standing in right now is for cattle farming. You don't have those contaminants and pollutants to worry about, but that doesn't mean the water's safe. The water still contains lots of contaminants that will make you ill and possibly kill you. Those pollutants are more on the natural base. That'd be E. coli, cholera, protozoa, stuff like that. And most of your water filters can filter that out. When it comes to the industrial chemicals, most filters can't. That includes the grails and stuff like that. You need a charcoal type filter to get rid of that stuff, and most of your backpacking filters and camping filters that you get these days just don't have that filtration capacity. You can find an aftermarket charcoal filter that'll filter the majority of it, but most just off the shelf, like Life straws, stuff like that, will not filter out those industrial and farm toxins. Now, most of them will filter out a percentage of the heavy metals, which is good, but it's only a percentage. So you need to amplify that amount if you're going to use those as water sources. A secondary filter and an activated carbon charcoal filter. Now, in my bag, I do have a combination filters that I'm going to go through you. It's not everything on earth. I don't carry a lot with me. I carry what I need. And with water, food collection, stuff like that, I usually carry backups. So I am walking along that creek that is contaminated, and generally I would not collect water from here to drink, even if it was boiled and everything else, unless I distilled it. Would be about the only way that I'd even consider drinking water out of that creek. Distillation requires a fire, a couple of containers, some tubing, and a lot of boiling. Is it prohibitive? No. You can do it. You just have to keep dirty and clean separated. And you've got to remember that with distilled water, you can only drink so much of it. Because it's distilled, it has no minerals in it. And water is actually one of the world's most corrosive substances, whether we realize it or not. Most of us don't, because it's so critical to our lives and so integral into our lives that we kind of forget that it is in itself a very corrosive chemical. Causes oxidation on metals, causes living tissue to break down by oxidization processes. And the only way it stabilizes is when it absorbs other chemicals and has that spread throughout it. Magnesium, salt, all sorts of stuff. Sugar and salt are a good process. We know this from our kitchens and our cooking, how that works. However, most of the water you drink, most of the spring water, filtered water and stuff, has the minerals and stuff added to make it not so hard on you. And what makes it hard is when you drink distilled water for long periods of time, it'll actually start to suck the minerals out of your body. So when you take that into account, getting water, deer trails. Okay, so this is a field pond, and it does not look very nice. Does not look very nice at all. But this is actually the cleanest water source I have. And I would tell you that that clean water source is loaded with E. coli. It is loaded with protozoa. It is loaded with Giardia and dozens of other things. Before I could use this water, I definitely have to filter it or treat it. Now, for those of you starting out and getting into the outdoors, this can seem like a daunting task, and all the hikers and backpackers will give you 9,000 pieces of advice, and you'll hear everything under the sun for doing this. The Grails, Sawyer water filtration, MSR, these are all standards, things that you'll hear. And right now I have plenty of water and I have no need of it, so I won't demonstrate these. I will show you a few of these items now that we're out here and how they would function out here. There we are. I can see where the deer and everything have trampled through out here trying to get down to the water source. So if you'll give me a second to set up here, I think those rocks right there, but right. All right. I do know that there are fish in this pond. So there's that. Let me put my walking stave down. Another thing you'll start to notice is I'll be using a walking stick or a cane more. I'm starting to have some mobility problems. So we're going to take care of and I'm going to flip you around. There we go. And I'm going to expand you. Okay. I maybe need to find a more level place than this to do this layout. I didn't realize it was quite that steep for the tripod. So we're going to go ahead and go up here, up onto the main bank. Yeah, there we go. Right into the grass. Here we go. Oh, perfect. Deer bedding area. That'll be perfect to set the tripod down in. And let me do some adjusting here for you. There. Now, just a touch more so I can get you. There we go. All right. And the walking stick I'm using now, I'll get into because there will be a section on walking sticks, walking assistants. When I'm in the outdoors, these are my friends. The more modern stuff, I do use rarely, but I have used these guys, walking staves, for most of my life. So I will go through those at a later episode as we get into that. Another complaint I've gotten about all of this, about my videos, besides them being too long, is that I'm not centering equipment properly, and I'm not always in frame. Also, that I'm not very entertaining. I'm not trying to be an entertainer, and I've said what my videography skills are. They don't exist, and I'm not trying to make them exist or pretend they do. All right, so what we've got is a micro Sawyer. You can get the plastic bags, but I highly suggest you upgrade them to one of the soft bags. Sawyer has a combo that you can get. There's multiple different types. This is an El Cheapo, but it's worked. This is the third one I've had. I've given them away to the kids and stuff. My personal kit has, what is it, a Koenig. It's the same brand that Sawyer has partnered with to make their new super flexible bags rather than their cheap plastic bags. So with a Sawyer kit, and this would be the full kit that you would get from Sawyer with their CNOC, I think it's CNOC bag, and this is a Dunk Hive, which is a knockoff of the CNOC bag. You have your actual filter. This would be the import that would screw into the bag, and then you could either put a piece of tubing on or directly pour it into your canteen, which I have in here, into your fresh and clean water source. Like I said, this is okay for this pond. This will remove just about everything that is in it. This water actually comes from the top of the hill. There's no ag on top of this hill. There's no plowed farmlands or anything else. I also know that there's no heavy equipment or anything that is busted down and rusted up this field. I keep saying So this field goes back about a half a mile to the south. It goes 1 mile to the east, and below me it goes about 1/8 of a mile. And that is the top end of this to the northeast, or sorry, southeast, is the high point, and it all kind of funnels down here. So all this rain that we're getting is literally just running through the soil and over the rock, and it's slowly funneling down into this pond. The cattle, the deer and stuff obviously do come down here to drink, and that is where our contamination to this water comes from. So beaver fever is a very, very real and actually probable result of trying to drink this water without first filtering or cleaning it. So you will have to use, whether it be a boiling method, putting it in a canteen, single wall metal canteen, or canteen cup. Like this right here, or one of the cups that come with it. And good old-fashioned boiling over a fire, or filtering it using a drip filter, a survival straw, or something like the MSR filters. MSR has these pump filters. I've had these for years and years and years. There's a pre-filter in it. There's the float. Here's the pre-filter. But years ago, they used to come with an addition that you could buy. And there's that pre-filter right here. This is the body of the pump. Inside the pump is a filter. That's the filter body. You can see the outport. This would be the import coming up through the pump. You've got your seal, flows through into the body of the filter housing. Now, it doesn't look like it because I take good care of my equipment, but I have had this for, let's see, I got this when I was stationed in Fort Lewis, so that would have been 2011, so 14 years old. I bought 2 packages of filters for it, and then I went and bought these. This is a secondary carbon filter from Sweetwater. So I also get my extra carbon filtration as if I had no choice but to draw from that creek down there. I could pass it through this and pull more of the heavy metals and contaminants out. Will it pull them all out? They say it will. I always err on the side of a little bit of mistrust. Do I think I'd survive drinking it? Yeah. Do I think it would give me long-term issues? Probably not, but if I did it continuously, I would bet it probably would. So, always err on the side of caution and knowing what you're doing. There's a couple other pieces in here, like this piece that you see right here allows me to screw this onto my Camelback bladder, my again TBI hitting here, my plastic water bottles. I'm sure they also fit the Stanley bottles, so I'm going to shortcut this and not look for the name to try and keep this running along, so you don't have to sit there and watch me struggle to find the name of the water bottles that I use. Anyway, I would trust this if I was up in the mountains, up in the Appalachians, and I was on the side of a mountain. I would trust this 99% with the Sawyer system. With the full MSR system, with the secondary carbon, 100%. 90% down here in the agricultural runoff. I've got 90% faith in it. Straight water boiling. Here from this water source on this clean pond, boiling the water for 2 minutes at a steady roll rate boil, I would trust it 100%. However, you have to be aware that it is not going to be clean, that there's going to be a lot of scum and other stuff that does end up in it, and silt and sediment that does not separate by boiling. If you had a pre-filter system for that, something with sand, a cup, and cotton cloth and like a soda bottle cut off to pre-filter it is probably best before you get it into either your canteen to straight direct boil or into your canteen cup to boil. That way you're filtering out all that biomatter and all that debris, so you're not drinking it. These will automatically pull out the debris, but you've got to remember that when the debris goes in, it's there. For the Sawyer to extend its life and to get the debris out, you can back flush it with this syringe using your clean water. Just back flush it and it'll extend the life of the Sawyer. With the MSR and these pump styles with the fixed filters, when it gets clogged up, you pull it out. There's a brush in here. You scrub out down on the inside and you scrub out the edges, and it will allow the filter to have full capacity again. Like I said, I've had this for years and years. This one has been on 20 trips. I have 4 of them and I rotate them. I would say that this probably has somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5,000 gallons through it of water. I do really like the MSR, but the trade-off is it is much heavier than the Sawyer. The Sawyer gets it almost as clean, but doesn't have quite the adaptability that this does. And the other thing is the Sawyer does not filter as fast as this does. This filters imminently faster than the Sawyer does. The Sawyer you can make go faster by squeezing the bag as you're filtering it, but you also will force and rupture the membranes in it, which is a real downside. And the more of those membranes that rupture, the less secure your water is from that source. So I don't recommend using that method. If you notice a slowdown in flow, you should immediately go ahead and back flush it, close off the bottom of the bag, turn it up, unplug it, use some of your clean water, back flush it, and roll from there. Katydin water filters, I have a real personal issue with. I have never really liked the Katydins. Their bigger systems are good, but bulky. Their smaller systems are frail, and I have had issues with them, so I don't carry them at all. I don't even give them out to other people. Grail is expensive and unnecessary. It does everything these do. They say that it purifies the water better. I'm not so sure I see that. The carbon filtration and the numbers that you run with the Grails pretty much runs along the same as a Sawyer, and you're not running with a hard bottle. And I have the option of keeping more backups than trying to run a Grail in the field. If you are a runner in a rural area where you can come across clean water, press it down in your Grail and go, that's fine, but it only gives you that bottle of water. So to purify your water, usually if I'm backpacking or if I'm out for a weekend or I'm kayak camping or expeditioning, I have 4 or 5 water bottles. So if you can imagine trying to fill your Grail, compressing it, opening it, pouring it into another bottle, doing that until that bottle's full, and then doing it for 3 other bottles, it can become taxing, to say the least. Is it great for somebody who's on a day hike or something, comes to a water source, presses, and then goes? Yes. The Grail Titanium makes up for a couple of shortfalls, and it gives you a cooking cup that you can cook directly in, or you can do a direct boil and then still use your filtration later. But personally, it's too bulky, too much extra weight when you have options, because believe it or not, all of this together right here weighs every bit as much as 1 Grail bottle. So this is only a fraction more. I would say that even adding this would all come up even to the weight of a Grail bottle. Not exactly weight saving or efficient. So the lesson here is when you're coming out, water is critical. Having access to water and having plenty of it. Kansas is a weird zone where things go crazy. The pond you see behind me does have a small spring in it, so there's always going to be a small 20 by 20 area that does have water in it. Other ponds like this would dry completely up, which if you were up here in the middle of summer where it gets 110, 115 degrees and you're standing in the blazing sun, a single water bottle is not going to do it, and trying to clean these sources of water is going to become critical and getting enough of it. This goes the same for anybody that is hiking the canyonlands of Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, especially when you get into Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and the temperatures really soar. The more water and the more efficient you can process the little bit of water you come across when you come across it into a maximum amount becomes critical. And like I said, there are other manufacturers besides Sawyer of pump style filtration devices that are high grade, high quality. MSR has never failed me. A little bulkier in some things, but solidly built, and maybe some issues with some of it, but not really, not enough for me to discount them as a serious contender. The Katadyn pumps are a little bit on the frail side. The Sawyer, if you are going for ultralight, quick, or I should say grab and go, and you have time at a water source to fill up all of your bottles and stuff, and you are either in the canyon lands above where anybody has any commercial assets or farms, the Sawyer is a solid choice. You can't go wrong with it if you're up in the Cascades or the Olympic Mountains or anywhere up along the Rockies or the Appalachians. The Sawyer is a wonderful choice. Do I trust my MSR a little bit more? Yes, I do. The carbon fiber, the adaptable and quick interchange parts. It is more of a machine, so it does have more that can go wrong with it. But I can simply take the filter head off of this and put it near the fire to dry it, or against my body over a day to allow it to dry. So sub-freezing temperatures won't destroy it. The Sawyer and the Life straws have a problem with their membranes. They have what's called permeable membranes, and they look like little worms, tiny straws that water can press through the sides on. The problem is when these are wet or you use them and the ground freezes. Sorry, I thought I heard a deer. Yeah, thought a deer was stomping. If you put these in a position where they're subject to freezing, those membranes will just explode. When this freezes, they're ruined. Same with Life straws. I know that a lot of the backpackers and campers keep an extra one that is dry and unused. But I would tell you that if you are a backpacker or an outdoorsman or a hunter who's spending a week up in the highlands looking for bighorn, elk, if you're up in Alaska, caribou, stuff like that, it's not enough. You have to guard these with your life. And even just having one extra dry one is not going to be enough to get you through. So definitely find a backup source besides having just an extra one of these. This is one of those ones where I'd say that if you're like right now, you'll see that I'm wearing my wool sweater and I'm wearing my my alpaca t-shirt underneath and nylon pants. But the weather's changing here. When I left for New York, it was in the 80s. When I came back, it was raining and in the mid to low 50s. At this point in time, the sun is starting to get ready to set. The temperatures dropped down to the low 50s and is moving towards the high 40s. So in the next couple of days, as the temperature drops, this is going to be at serious risk. And if this fails and you were to drink that water down there, you'd end up very, very ill. You'd end up with explosive diarrhea. You wouldn't be able to drink enough water to keep yourself hydrated because you'd still be drinking contaminated water. And you would literally be dehydrating yourself between the fever, and that's why it's called beaver fever. Giardia causes a fever and diarrhea. You would burn up, you would sweat out and explosively excrete all your fluids. And all you're doing when you try to get more water from down there is contaminate yourself more. And if you have an accident down in that water, you've just contaminated the water more. So when it comes to these and any of the Life Straw or I believe Katadyn has a membrane type filtration unit. These absolutely cannot freeze. If they do, they put your life in jeopardy. Having a second backup is not a good idea. It is a critical item to have. It is not something you can even take the chance with. And if you're carrying these, then you need to have another backup plan, whether it is boil everything from there on or what. That's fine, but you've got to remember that if you're in this area and you're in freezing temperatures, boiling is not going to remove the heavy metals. It is not going to remove the chemicals from ag. And if you're down towards New Jersey, Louisiana, places like that, where you have a lot of factories, oil, stuff like that, and those kind of contaminations, it's not going to remove those either. And neither will this, but you'll get more of it from simple boiling than you would through this, because even the membranes on this catch a good portion of it. Not as much as you'd get from a pump press type filter. This, a Grail or something like that, they would definitely pull more of the contaminants out. And if you've got the secondary charcoal filter, that will pull even more out. Water is critical. Water is life, especially when you're out in the outdoors. If you were listening this year, over a dozen hikers and people just visiting national and state parks died due to dehydration and not carrying enough water, not having a way to even get clean water. Water is a precious resource. Only 2% of all surface water is drinkable. Being able to filter sources that are questionable is absolutely critical to anybody who's going into the outdoors. Knowing how to treat the water is absolutely critical to anyone going into the outdoors. Another option for this kind of water is doing the pre-filter through that soda bottle, like I said, using a bandana or a cotton cloth down at the bottom, putting some sand in, using it as a primary filter. And you don't have anything to boil with, and you went out on a spur, take a little bottle like this right here. And this actually has this has a dropper head on it. The 2 drops you just saw are chlorine bleach. This is a little over a quart. This is a 1 liter canteen right here, and this would get a single drop. To use this, I would use the soda bottle or any other kind of bottle method, using the cloth and sand for a filter and gravel. And I'd add 2 drops to this. You can also use water purification tablets, the same. They taste nasty. The nice thing about the chlorine bleach is that if you leave the lid off and let it sit for a few hours, after you've sealed it for 20 minutes and let it sit and mixed it, just let it sit out like this for about an hour or 2. Most of the chlorine comes out and evaporates. So you get a clean water source. It is not going to remove the heavy metals, and it won't remove the other chemicals. It will, however, kill the Giardia, the bacteria, the viruses that are laying in those water sources. Quick, easy method. In the snow, to gather water, you will hear many ways to do it. People will tell you just scoop it up and throw it on the fire. Don't do that. If you're going to collect snow for water, you're going to find that an entire cup of snow this size will only give you about that much water in the bottom. So what you need to do is get a lot of it. Putting it on the fire is going to burn your cup. Initially, what will happen is it'll superheat the bottom. That'll steam up through the top. It'll leave a gap on the bottom, and it'll burn your pan. So to turn snow to water, what you're going to do is you're going to scoop up and you're going to dome your cup over. Then you're going to take it and you're going to put it near your fire on the fire ring. With the most space that you have with this cup, it's going to be backwards, like this, towards the fire, with my fire being right about here, and let it sit there until it starts to turn to water. With it domed over, it'll now be about half full. Take another scoop of snow, put it in. The cup is now called primed. The warm water inside will melt the snow faster than you did up against the fire. But now you haven't risked burning your cup or your pan, whichever one you're using. So you haven't damaged a critical resource, and it will now move much faster. The same goes that when you go to fill this will only put about half in here. You'll fill it. You'll leave a quarter of the cup of the lukewarm water in the bottom. You'll pile your snow back in here, put it back by the campfire, not on it, not right up against it, but enough that when you put your hand here, you feel solid warmth. And this will now expedite the melting process. And now you get a steady, continuous way of filling your water bottles from snow. And then you don't need these. Remember, it is going to have a dusty taste to it. So if you want, you can run it through a filter, but you're risking your filter for a bit of atmospheric dust. Can it have risks with it? Yes, it can. There are chemicals in the atmosphere that we spew, but none of this is really going to get rid of it. You can get rid of the flavor by running it through the charcoal. The charcoal will get rid of all that if you have the charcoal filtration addition. And that would purify all your water and get most of the heavy metals or chemicals out. But something like this will not. This will take a little bit out. The Grail will probably take about as much as that out. But it's a much cleaner source and safer source than, say, the pond and stuff like that. If you do have access to like a mountain stream and stuff, instead of melting snow, everything's frozen over, chip up the ice, it will melt much faster and give you much more quantity per area than snow does. Snow seems like you got a mountain of snow sitting here and you realize that you filled the cup 4 times, and you just, on number 5, when you realize you've finally gotten the cup full of just stuffing snow in it and trying to melt it. So if you have access to ice, ice is a much better source of water in an amount than snow. With all that being said, another way to collect water is to use tarps. You set your canteen cup to one corner of a tarp, your canteen one, or water bottle to one corner of a tarp, canteen cup to another, and let the rain roll off. Now remember that if you decide to use this method, that whatever chemicals or whatever you've washed and cleaned that tent with is going with it. And if the avian family, the birds and bats, have relieved themselves onto your tent, that is also going into your water. So it's not a direct source to go out and drink. You are going to have to purify and clean that also. So if you do happen to be up in the Smokies or the Shenandoahs, or you got a nice day like this, except you've got a rain shower coming and you're low on water, and you don't want to hike the 2 miles down to the creek, and you figure it'd be easier to take it off your tarp or your tent, remember that you still need to clean it, and you still need to process it to be safe, because there is always going to be things in it that'll have to be removed. In that case, boiling will remove biological and viral contaminants, but it doesn't remove the chemical. Again, it also does not remove the heavy metal. Airborne contaminants don't have the extremely high levels of heavy metal contaminants unless you happen to be in a volcanic fallout zone where you're getting a lot of pumice and ash and stuff like that. That there is a lot of heavy metals in those materials, but general high level dust, there isn't. There may be some, especially vaporized mercury, but usually it bonds together and it falls not far from the source. So if you're in the mountains and the canyon lands away from major industrial complexes, you're still going to be pretty much okay. This series is going to be run in a way to give you the basics. There's 1,000,001 content providers that'll show you all the gear in depth. I already have my sets of what I like. I do try out the new things. Right now, I don't find myself in a position to be able to go buy the newest, latest, greatest. I usually like to see what has come out and give it a couple of years and see what people really think about it before I go and try. And even though I'm doing this series, I'm not doing it as a gear review. What you see me using is stuff that me or my family have tried and used, and we have found works. When we get into my pioneering equipment, walking sticks, stuff like that, everything that I have is tried and true and has been with me for years. I got this one. Well, I guess we'll wait on that one. Stories that go with them are later. I'm trying to cut these videos down to make everybody happy. If you have questions for me, please ask them. If you have specific questions about specific companies and stuff, I have dealt with almost everyone. I just keep what I find useful and that I am comfortable with and will trust with my life. And that comes down to the way I treat it and what I give my family. Is I have to trust my life with it. If I don't, I simply won't keep it around. I get rid of it relatively quickly. There's some things that just fail due to age, and I will replace them because I know that that's what that is. But the series is literally meant to teach you from start to finish how to go in the outdoors and be okay. And that's my whole shtick here. Is I am not here to do crazy entertainment. You're not going to hear huge inflections and me screaming. None of that. What you see is what you get. When we actually get into the camping and we get to the skills and the use of the equipment, after I show you what it is and why I take it, you're going to see me use it and you're going to go with me on my adventures, as many as I can have. and take you with me. But right now, I'm just going to take you like you're one of my kids or one of my kids' friends that's wanting to go with us on some of our outings. Or my nieces, like I said, have started to join me. And I've gone over the equipment with them before we start and the importance of it before we go. And that's where we're going. We started off with health and hygiene, keeping yourself healthy, keeping yourself clean. You will see that in practice when we're out in the field. How to get clean water is the next critical necessity. Clothing will be next in this series. The next videos will be on clothing because, well, in the middle of summer or on a tropical beach, going out with no clothes is perfectly fine. Yeah, being in Kansas, Alaska, most of the other places, or in a blazing desert, clothing kind of becomes critical. Humans weren't exactly built with fur and other protections against the environment. Our clothing is our defense, our first line of defense against Mother Nature. And while Mother Nature may find ways to get around that and kill us in the end, in the most extreme, for most everything, our clothing can save us from just about everything except the craziest, if we know how to do it and we do it right. So clothing will be our next video. That'll wrap things up for this one. I will see you on the next video. Have a good day.